Right, we're here. We're sitting here again. John, we interviewed a while ago for the YouTube channel. John was one of the hand glider pilots in Moonraker. We've now got Mr. Steve Fensome, the second hand glider pilot that was in Moonraker. Now, not a lot of people know, Steve, that you were the second pilot, right? When I talk in the James Bond circles about hang glider Moonraker, they all seem to know John's name because he was he was credited at the end as a stuntman. Now, Steve, you were basically taken along. Now we'll hear the story from you guys, but John said that he take you along as the young guy and the new guy, and to do some of the stunt work as well. But you were the guy that nobody knew about. So anyway, well let's start at the beginning, right? How did you get together? How did you know each other?
Well, we used to hang glide together, didn't we?
We went on a hang gliding holiday, organised by Murray Rose, the Chagos team hang gliding, because we both flew Midas hang gliders, and that's where we met. That's how we met. That's how I met John. It was a great holiday, and we were both flying Chagos hang gliders. The film, the Moonraker people spoke to the Murray Rose and said, who do you know that would be good flying powered hang gliders? And at that particular time, there was very, very few people flying powered hang gliders. And Murray said, well, I know the best person in the country is John Long. And so that's how they contacted John. And he thought, well, I might need somebody to do any of the really dangerous bits, so let's have Steve.
But so you did this thing together before then? That's where you met up together?
Yeah.
And then he obviously thought, was that the first person you thought of, John, when you thought about taking someone with you?
The only person.
The only person you thought of?
Oh, yeah.
Right, okay.
I was actually the last person, really, but as being the only person meant that he had to take me.
No, and I would still choose him.
Yeah. Because you were contacted by the Bond people. Were you contacted by the Bond people to do the stunt?
Yeah, I had to interview first.
Right.
With Eon at Pinewood.
Yeah.
And we went from there.
Right.
But we needed a second pilot.
Yeah.
They had me for my looks and had him for his physique.
Right. Fantastic.
We are talking about 45 years ago.
It is.
Yeah.
It's a long time ago.
You know, I don't think anybody really realizes, you know, how dangerous it was. Like, even gliding back then was quite a dangerous sport. I mean, it's not. It's got much safer now, I imagine. But back in the days, it was quite a dangerous thing, right?
Well, until I was getting on the aeroplane to fly out of Iguazu, nobody had told me that 15 people had died flying light aircraft over those falls.
Right. Okay.
And that's the truth.
Yeah. Okay.
And that's because there's such a big downdraft into the falls area.
Right. So it's
and
the downdraft that's
the jungle's hot.
Yeah.
The water's cool. So the air's all going down.
Right.
So it can suck in light aircraft, let alone hang gliders.
Right.
We had some equipment to try out, and I don't believe you tried any of it, John, did you, in the UK before we went?
No.
But I had a fly of it. I flew the equipment from Taunton Racecourse, and I reckoned that in the UK I had a climb rate of about 50 foot a minute, which is nothing. It really is nothing. And you take off at high altitude in hot weather and you have no climb rate at all. I think John flew from the Brazilian airfield, and that was a bit higher than the falls. And you arrived at the falls with like no height whatsoever. Is that right?
Yeah, 7 miles.
Right.
And the glider, I could push the nose up, but it wouldn't go up. It just mushed along.
Right.
It just wouldn't climb at all.
Right.
But
So you were
that's
meant
how
to
it
go.
was.
So you were meant to go over the falls a bit higher than you
Oh.
did in the film.
I was going to do a dummy run first. The helicopter pilot and I discussed it the night before. And I was going to do a dummy run around at height, then go down lower and do the low run that they wanted. But I couldn't get any height, not in 7 miles. Ridiculous.
So it wasn't a dummy run. You actually did that run then. So you couldn't even get. So the one we saw in the film, was that meant to be your dummy run, or was that where they said action?
Well, no, that I was attempting to do a dummy run, but I was so low that I just had to go for it. It was ridiculous.
Right.
So John took off, climbed a few feet above the airfield in the sort of breeze that was coming in,
Yeah.
and then you flew downhill all the way to the falls. And when you went over the edge of the falls, you went downwards from there quite a lot. And there wasn't really very much to land in. I mean, the only bit that you could honestly crash into.
Well, I said into the radio, I'm going to have to crash now, and did. But flying over there, when I got to the falls, had I dropped 10 feet, I was going to stuff it into the trees, which would have been up the trunks of the trees because I was so low. But luckily, I didn't drop 10 feet.
Okay, so this is where it starts, right? Going through. Now this first bit when he's now going through the bushes, is that the Everglades? It probably would be, right?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, that's the Everglades.
Yeah. Right.
Yeah, there's a bit here coming up where we sat all day waiting for some birds to sit in the trees. Yeah, everybody had to be silent. We had a I don't know, it was probably a sort of like a pleasure boat that you could seat 30 or 40 people in, and that was moored up on the side, and we just sat around in silence. I was with Caddy Broccoli's son, and that shot,
just for that shot,
we sat for hours.
Right.
I don't know, 3 or 4 hours at least, but it does look good, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
Yeah.
So you were there on the days that they were filming.
Yeah,
these
right.
parts
Yeah,
as
we
well.
had to be on call,
Right.
ready to do something. Although there was absolutely no chance that we were going to be doing any hang gliding.
No, not in this part, because this was all just the stunt work, right? This was the explosions in the river. You know, the boats being blown up.
That's
and all
right.
kinds of stuff.
Well, the special effects people on this they were just amazing.
Yeah.
You know, they always choose the best people to do any job. They don't say how much is it going to cost. They say who's the best people.
Yeah.
Luckily, there wasn't a lot of competition for hang glider, powered hang glider pilots.
Well, we
So
were
we
the
got
only
the job.
good-looking blokes about.
That's right. Yeah. But the special effects people were just incredible, and the boat drivers.
And you see Wingnut come through the hedge in a minute.
I mean, yeah. I mean, I wasn't there watching all of this, but certainly we sat around, and we just had to be silent. We had to sit there and very, very quietly smoke dope and and be silent.
Not me.
No, not you.
Okay, so we'll be coming up soon to the part, Steve, where
I actually take off
right,
from the boat.
So can you give us anything before it happens? I mean, was the boat prepared, or was it just? I mean, when them wings come out?
Yeah.
Is that's special effects, right?
Yes, that's right. That's a model.
That's a model.
Yeah.
And when you actually take off,
that jump was tremendous, wasn't it, John?
Unbelievable.
That's
Yeah,
right.
we did see that. We watched that. That was
They
amazing.
called him Wingnut because his ears stuck right out.
Right, Wingnut. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So now, right. So so the miniature was the wings coming out. Then were you stood on the back of the boat with?
Yeah, that was in Florida.
Yeah, this is the Iguazu, obviously, but in Florida.
Yeah, that's a bit of the
So
Iguazu
they
Falls.
cut that in now, right? But
Yeah.
when you took off,
So that's a model.
that's a model.
Or that's made up.
Yeah.
You know, it's
So
the
now
best
this is
they
where
could
it
do.
happens, right? That's
Right,
a miniature.
that's the miniature.
And this, what happens here then?
That's me taking off from
so
the boat.
was you stood on the back of the boat
Yeah,
and then taking off?
yeah.
Was that? I mean, was that a dangerous? Here's
And
so
that's
this
the
cuts
model.
That's the model.
Because
And then it cuts over to John.
yeah, well, the reason that they had a model there was because they didn't have film in the camera.
That's what John told us the last time.
Yeah, and that they managed to get that boat to go over the
Over the
falls, but they didn't manage to get the Bond boat to go over the falls.
And this is John now.
Yeah,
So
this is
you,
John. He's below the level of the falls there. There's no way he can turn around and go back.
Right. Okay. So that.
And he can either.
And that's him coming in.
That's John crashing into the
And
jungle.
who's this dropping down on the floor?
That's Roger.
That stuntman?
Roger.
There was a stunt man that rolled around on the floor.
Right.
And Roger just stood up and walked away and took his helmet off. He wouldn't even lift the glider up. This is what Pete,
They had it on
our
rope.
third person that was with us to sort of rig up gliders and help out and talk a lot, Pete Bayliss. He was the one that had to lift the glider up because Roger wouldn't even lift it, let alone do anything else.
Right. Okay. So the crashing was obviously the stuntman or Roger. Then your guy holding the thing up. So basically, there was you, Steve, in the Everglades taking off from that boat.
That's right.
Can you tell us like what that entailed? So you're stood on the back of this boat, and how many times did you have to?
Well, I did it
that?
first.
You didn't fly off the boat though. You flew off the back of the pickup.
No, I did fly off the boat. I did fly off the boat.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I had you up the front for me to signal
Well, why
when
didn't
we're
they
doing
film?
the right speed.
Yeah.
They didn't film me because you had Roger's suit on and I didn't.
Ah, I see. As I had the watch on. Maybe
that's
maybe
right.
you just didn't have the watch on.
Yeah, they
Which
didn't
I thought
trust
was
us.
really.
Maybe
I
it
thought
was
that
just
was
the
really
statue.
funny. That was really funny. Like there was no chance that anybody would see what watch I was wearing.
Right. They made
But
sure.
they made sure that we had
the James Bond watch on.
We had the James Bond watch on. Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So, well, when I took off from the boat, I think we had 3 or 4 people holding the wires, holding the front wires and the side wires, and they were sort of like lying on the floor,
Right.
and they all had to let go of it at the same time. Otherwise, I would have just gone straight into the water.
Right.
We were trundling down the river, and basically we weren't going fast enough for the boat to get up on the plane.
Right.
But I was knew that the glider was just about to take off, and like the people were holding the wires just couldn't hold it down anymore. And so I said release, and they all released, and off I went very nicely. But anyway, when they looked at it in the rushes, they said no, the boat wasn't up on the plane, and it didn't look right. And I had taken off and flown the wrong way. I should have flown away from the camera, not sort of over the camera boat. But they didn't tell me what they wanted me to do, So how was I to know? But anyway, so they talked to John and said no, the boat wasn't up on the plane. And John came and told me, and I said, oh well, that's not a problem. We can do the shot again, and we'll do it downwind, so that the airspeed isn't so high for the glider taking off, and the boat gets up on the plane. And John said, no way, you're not doing that again. It was dangerous enough the first time, and I nearly died of a heart attack. I think that's what you said to me.
Yeah.
And you said, that's good enough, we've done it. So we didn't do the shot again with it
Right.
up on the plane.
Okay. So the Right, now you're saying there's somebody holding down with wires. Now you could feel the pull.
I could feel the pull. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, and I could see them struggling as well.
Right. But what could have? I mean, what could have happened there? What was the worst scenario that could have happened with you taking off from that boat? What would have been the worst scenario?
Going in the water.
Yeah. Well, if you hit water, it is actually very hard at speed. If one of the guys holding the side wires had let go and the other one was holding on to it, the glider would have gone straight over like that, sort of upside down, crash into the water, or maybe crash into the camera boat which was driving alongside us.
Right. Okay.
Either would have been bad, but it would have been bad for the cameraman as well as myself if it had. And I think really that's, John thought we'd got away with it so far. Well, we didn't want to push our luck.
We worked out the speed by getting Steve in the front of the boat with a rope holding it down. I said to the guy who was driving the boat, when we're at the right speed, I'll give you a signal. When I couldn't push the nose of the glider down by the throttle, that was the right speed. So I think it was 18 mile an hour, 18 knots.
18 knots or something.
18 knots or something.
So you could feel the nose, not like...
Well, I was actually doing it with the throttle. And when I couldn't do it anymore, I knew that was takeoff speed.
Right.
So that is the speed that the boat was going at for Steve and for me.
Yeah.
To get it right.
Okay.
We had to.
But that was going into wind. There was about, I don't know, 8 and 10 mile an hour wind. Yeah. So the glider was doing near on 30 miles an hour. It was going flat out as fast as that little thing would go, and it just had to lift. That's why I suggested, well, we'll do it downwind. But you see, the impact in the water would have been an extra 20 miles an hour, or if it was 8 miles an hour, it would be an extra 16 miles an hour, which might have made the difference between me living and dying.
Right. Okay.
And John thought, no, that's stupid. And looking back on it, I think John was right.
Well, we're both here.
You're both still here, which proves something.
Yeah.
Do you remember what part of the Everglades you filmed on? Do you remember like the area, or was it just like? Was it near any town?
Freshwater Bay.
It was something Keys. Florida Keys. It was Florida Keys.
Oh, it was the Florida Keys.
Yeah, it's where they bring all the dope in.
Right. Okay.
Yeah. Or that time on big boats, and we actually saw somebody coming in with one of these boats in daylight, and they were so fast. The boats were so fast, and they just shot into sort of an inlet and just vanished.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Okay, so then we cut obviously over to the Iguazu Falls, where John. Now you took off from the back of a. I mean, you started somewhere else, right? You didn't start.
I started at the airfield in Argentina.
Right.
Well, I think it was Brazil. It was Brazilian airfield.
Sorry, it was.
Brazil,
yeah, as far down Brazil as you could go. I took off there.
In the airfield.
Yeah.
Now, how do you? I mean.
And I couldn't go back. I had to crash somewhere.
Yeah.
They wouldn't allow me to go back. I could only take off.
Oh, you could only take off there.
Yeah.
And you wouldn't. Right. So for the guys that are watching that don't understand how a power glider works, how will you take off with something like that?
I ran along. I got off the ground just.
So the motor's going. There's a rotor on it, right?
Oh, absolutely.
And you hold it up and you run until you've got enough
airspeed
to get off. Yeah. And then you sort of it just lifts you off the ground.
You've got a throttle in your mouth like a clothes peg, so you bite on it, and that gives you full throttle. And when I got up to about 15 feet, one wing lifted up. I got some lift that I didn't want, and I swore, but it did level out, so I could keep going.
Right.
It was nearly over as soon as we started.
Right. Okay. But you took off. So you took off, and then how long did it take you then to fly down to the falls?
Oh, 7 miles.
7 miles. Well, what's that?
Oh, over the jungle.
Yeah. About 15 minutes, 20 minutes.
Flight down to the falls.
But I couldn't climb. I couldn't get any height.
No, you said as you said earlier. But how would how would they know you were coming? Were they looking at the horizon?
But
Watching?
this is why they didn't film it, because he couldn't hear me coming.
Right.
Didn't you have radio, John?
Yeah, to the
To the base.
helicopter.
Oh, to the helicopter.
Yeah,
But not to the cameraman.
but the cameraman put his film in a cool box.
Yeah.
Didn't hear me coming. I flew over his head, so he quickly put the film in to get the rest of it.
Right.
But it was all crazy.
Yeah. I mean, did they ask you to do it again? Did they ask you to...
No,
They didn't.
no.
Because they knew that was... I mean, when you crashed in the jungle, that wasn't planned, right? We know that, we know these things... we know these things happened. And we know that wasn't planned. You crashing into the trees.
Well,
but they left it in the film, which is really good. And that's why when Roger does actually crash and come down from the trees, it's a really good touch,
that's right.
That it happened,
And as soon as I hit the ground, I thought, bloody snakes.
That's all you thought?
Yeah.
So you just crashed in.
Yeah.
You just crashed with a hang glider.
Yeah.
After doing probably one of the most dangerous stunts in film history. And the only thing you could think of was bloody snakes.
Yeah. Yeah. So I got out, looked around, and my trousers were tucked in.
Oh, there you go. Yeah. So, I mean, these are you can see how fears work in different areas. Because you can, like I say, you flew over them waterfalls, and everybody knows. Well, everybody that's got anything to do with aerodynamics knows that flying over a waterfall is probably one of the most dangerous things you can do. But amazing. So after, so did you go to Brazil, Steve? Did you? You were in Brazil as well.
Yeah, I was in Brazil as well.
Yeah.
I mean, I think a few things we should say is getting permission to fly from an international airfield on a hang glider is very difficult. Anybody that knows anything about flying will be impressed, really, that we managed to get permission. And the reason that we needed to fly from an airfield, because it was higher up, they generally had about 15-mile-an-hour breeze that you could take off into in sort of middle of the afternoon, was because we had tried taking off from a disused airfield that we'd been given the use of, which was actually in Argentina.
That's right.
And was very close to the falls, but that was just a little heat hollow. And I had tried flying from there. And I was 22 then. I was a good runner.
Right.
And
he was better looking then.
I was better looking, and I'll tell you, I could run. And I think that I was running at least 20 miles an hour, 22 miles an hour, flicking the floor with my feet, and it wasn't taking off.
Right.
And I sort of tripped over, and I ended up with a piece of cinder, because it was more of a cinder track than a tarmac airfield, in my knee, and that put me out of action for at least 10 days. And this is why John had to do all the dangerous jobs that I was supposed to be doing, because I managed to injure myself.
Right.
And we had a pickup truck, and we boarded in the back of it for me to stand on with the glider, for it to drive on it. It's like 30, 40 mile an hour for me to take off.
Right.
We only did that once.
That was dangerous as well then. Yeah.
Extremely.
Oh, extremely dangerous. Right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm laughing. They're going extremely dangerous.
Well, yeah, it was. And I had to lift the right wing up a bit to go over the cab of the pickup.
Right.
It wasn't really very sensible.
Yeah. But,
so after trying these different methods of launching from this disused airfield, which had been looked at by the American team that didn't do it in the end.
Oh, the Americans.
And they'd said, yeah, that would be a good place. We can launch from there. And after us trying these two systems, me running like a crazy person, him on the back of a pickup, driving along at 30 or 40 miles an hour, we decided, no, this was no good. We had to talk to the Brazilian authorities and get permission to go from there, from the airfield. So that's what we did.
There were some American guys who were going to do it in the beginning, and the script called for the boat to be doing 60 mile an hour with the hang glider on, and then the hang glider taking off at 60 mile an hour. Well,
They didn't go that fast in
no,
those days.
Mr. Broccoli got them to put the film in to show me. And they were going along, and the glider was bending, and the sail was flapping. It was terrible. And they stopped, and they said didn't know what to do. And I said, "Oh, why don't you do it at 30 mile an hour and speed up the film?" Mr. Broccoli went, "Bloody hell!" He said, "Why the hell didn't we think of that?" So that really, I think, put the nail in the coffin for the Americans.
Right.
So they were up the road.
Yeah. Okay.
That they wanted.
They wanted a whole team, didn't they?
Yeah, they wanted a boat. They wanted special food. They wanted everything under the sun. It was ridiculous. Of course, we Herberts came along and just.
We were easy going.
Yeah.
We did what they asked. Yes.
What was were you in Florida as well then? So you were both together all the time. You
Yeah.
were in Florida together. What was the worst things in each place? I mean, Florida was it was obviously hot there. It was obviously hot in Brazil as well. Was that did that make a difference to like the thermics and everything? Did that make a difference to how the glider works? I mean, you guys had obviously trained in England, and then you go to these hot lands.
Yeah, but where it was very, very hot, the glider didn't work.
Which you thought it would.
It didn't climb. Well, we were quite green really on the whole thing, weren't we? Really, I mean, the whole idea of a hang glider with the power on the glider itself rather than on the weight on the pilot is very dangerous, which they have sort of thought about soon after this. And as you're flying along, if you hit a bump, the glider goes over the top, goes like that, and goes into a dive.
Right.
I flew it, like I say, in Taunton, off the Taunton racecourse, and I think I just said to you, John, I said it seems to be a bit unstable. I don't know quite what's wrong with it.
I think you swore first.
Yes, I think I probably did. But I realise now, after that it's just not a good design.
Right.
No, they were dangerous machines.
Dangerous machines.
A lot of people got killed.
Flying gliders.
Yeah.
Flying with the unit where it was fitted.
Yeah.
On the glider.
Throttle in your mouth. People were going upside down. One guy went through the sail.
Right.
When it was upside down, and he's still alive.
Yeah.
Brian Milton.
But to answer your question, yes, the altitude and the air temperature makes it doesn't work nearly as well
as it would here.
It would here in England.
Oh,
yeah.
Really? I thought because it was warm and because the warm air, it would work even better.
No, we've got thick air here in England.
Okay,
yeah, works a lot better.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Okay. So that was obviously another thing that you had to learn quick. To know that the thing wasn't working.
That's right.
Good.
So after the my accident and John trying to take off from the pickup, the next thing, like I say, John took me along, to do the dangerous jobs.
Yeah.
I hurt my knee, and the next thing you did was hang underneath the helicopter on a wire. Am I allowed to talk about that?
Yeah.
Do you feel embarrassed now about agreeing to doing that, John?
Well, I thought if I hung under the helicopter on a cable and they flew over the falls, they could film it and it would look all right.
Yeah.
I said to the guy, not go any more than 15 feet. He went up about 500 feet and I was swinging about like a lunatic underneath.
Yeah.
So we got down on the ground.
I was on the ground. And I could hear what they were saying on the radio. And he was swearing like mad. Yeah. And the helicopter pilot, who was absolutely excellent, he worked for a logging company. So he was flying. Yes, he was flying into sort of logging camps in between the trees and things. Yeah, he was really good. And he said on the radio, I can't hold this. I can't hold it. I'm going to have to put him down. And the hang glider was going underneath the helicopter, backwards and forwards like that. And it was It was just crazy.
So then they.
So what did you do then?
Went and got an anvil.
That's right. Now,
No.
And hung
Yeah,
it halfway up.
so he had an anvil halfway up, just above him.
To
So if
stabilise.
anything happened to the line, it would drop on his head and squidge him into the ground. Yeah. Now,
Which is just,
people say that I was a bit crazy,
well,
and when I heard that this is what was happening, I said, no, surely not.
yeah, the guy went off and bought the anvil down the town.
Yeah. But anyway, it still didn't really stop it from swinging around, did it?
No, it wasn't very successful.
No.
There's a guy, I was trying to think of his name this morning, John somebody, who does all of the stunt stuff. His father used to do it before him. And he fitted this, and Pete Bayliss earned his money because he spotted that they hadn't tightened it up.
Oh, right.
And so he came along just before he was going to lift me off, and the cable was just on the end. So they got clamp or
So
something
Pete,
and did it.
It was worth bringing Pete then.
Yeah, just.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
So, how have you been? How are you getting from set to set? What?
Oh, well, the Belljack Ranger would come over. We put the glider through it, so it was sticking out both sides, and I'd sit on it in the middle.
But I mean, how long were these things? How long? I mean, I've got a glider from Live and Let Die at home, and that's like what, 5 meters long or something. So it's like what,
Yeah.
like 20 foot long or something.
It sticks out both sides.
Quite a lot.
But that's that is sort of folded up,
So
folded in the sausage. Yeah.
Aerodynamically, not a big problem for the
No,
No.
for the helicopter.
Right. Okay.
And, both doors open and me sat in the middle.
And that would land at the hotel, and you get it out at the hotel again.
Well, I said I would get permission for him from the hotel management, and when he came the next day, I told him that he had permission to land there, but it was me that was giving him permission, nobody else.
How many gliders did you take with you?
Well, no,
they had three.
Three.
Yeah,
three.
yeah.
I think they may have had four. They may have had four. One
Go on.
One was supposed to be just hung up and filmed.
No,
it wasn't supposed to fly.
they always keep one of everything at Pinewood.
That's right.
So they put one on the wall in Pinewood. I think we must have had two at Miami,
Yeah.
and we must have had about 3 or 4 down in Argentina.
All right. Okay.
There was more.
Well, we had plenty of gliders.
So you did have, but you didn't take them with you. They were supplied by.
Oh, yes.
Everything was.
But you told them what to buy, right?
No. The Americans. So we had equipment that we didn't know anything about.
Oh, no way.
We didn't know whether it was supposed to be flown or whether it was just supposed to be hung up in a hangar for filming,
And they bought trailers as well, which were completely chrome plated.
They threw so much money around.
Right.
I was amazed. I was just 22 years old, and I worked on the building site.
Yeah.
And I was blown away by it. Really.
Yeah, well, so was I, and I was about.
So we
23.
were talking about the helicopter guy, weren't we? Renardo.
Ronaldo.
Yes, yeah. Well, when he picked us up from the off the lawn from the hotel, what he liked to do was he took off backwards to show some class, and I mean it just looked amazing. A helicopter just takes off backwards.
Yeah.
He was
the
brilliant.
people in the hotel couldn't believe us really, because we looked just like, well,
He
I
couldn't
certainly
speak
looked like
very good
slobs.
English.
Right.
But we were picked up by a helicopter. It was an excellent hotel. The only reason we were staying in it was because it was near this airfield that the American team had said would be suitable for us to fly from, disused airfield. And it was the Brazil International something. It'd been built for the World Cup.
World Cup.
Yeah,
Right.
It was a really posh hotel, and everybody else stayed in on the Argentina side. Yeah, it was the Argentina side that they stayed.
Well,
they were on the other side of the river, but it turned out, of course, we weren't using that airfield except for risking your life hanging underneath a helicopter.
And I was the only one who had a clothesline on my bit that sticks out. What do you call it?
veranda.
Yeah, I had a clothesline because I wash my smalls and hang them there. They didn't take long to dry,
Yeah.
but I was the only one with the line. Wasn't
But
I?
did you
Well,
not just say,
well-
John? Did you not just say that you're scared of heights?
Yeah.
What, being a glider pilot and you're scared of heights?
Yeah.
How does that work?
Well, a lot of military pilots apparently can't stand heights.
So you just didn't look down, right? You just looked ahead.
Well, my brain tells me I'm hanging 4 feet from the glider, so I'm really only hanging 4 feet.
Of course you are. Right. But so you've been like in retirement now for a few years, John. Yeah. Now that you're 61 or something. No, you. When was the last time you flew? When was the last time you flew?
I don't know. That's the truth.
15, 20 years ago,
About
probably.
15, 20 years ago, yeah.
Yeah.
But Steve, you're still flying, right?
I am, yes. I'm flying rigid hang gliders now.
Right.
They've got carbon fibre leading edge. The wing is a proper sort of aerofoil shape, and they fly a lot better.
Right.
Though they do take a bit of time putting together and taking apart.
Right.
But they do fly a lot better than the flexi.
The
flexi
trees
wings.
can still pop up under them.
Yeah.
Yes, that's true.
Yeah.
I have visited trees.
Oh, okay.
We won't talk about that. though.
Okay. Yeah, great stuff. So I've got a couple of questions here from Facebook. Philip asks that he understands that in Florida there was a bar owned by Burt Reynolds near where you filmed. Do you know anything about that? Do you remember anything about that?
He didn't contact us.
No. Well, I mean, apparently the crew.
He didn't ask for my signature
Autograph.
or my autograph. No.
No. Okay, so Burt Reynolds.
But there was a bar there that everybody used on near the jetty.
Oh, yeah.
There was. That probably was.
Was the one. So
Probably
it was.
was.
The jetty and there was a bar there.
Yeah.
That was probably it then.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then we've already answered the other question, which was how did you get the hang glider up in the air at Iguazu? So that was obviously starting off at that airport, right? We've got Oliver, AF Oliver asks, how many takes did it take to get the shots? Because we know in James Bond films it takes sometimes they do 55 takes before they get their shot. How many takes did you have to do coming off the back of that boat at Florida?
Well, I only did one.
Really?
But I was happy to do another one, like I
Right.
say.
Yeah, but
downwind.
I did the first one.
Yeah.
To
To
prove
check it out.
prove that we could do it.
Yeah.
I did one and decided the speed.
Yeah.
But once the speed was decided, from then on, you could do a dozen.
Right. But you did one take Iguazu and one take
Yeah.
in the
Yeah.
Keys. And
I mean, on the boat. Since then, other people have said to me, "Well, you didn't really need to take off from the boat. You could have just got the boat flying downwind down the river, and you could have just flown over the top of it, come down very low, and then popped up again.
yeah.
And that would have probably been a lot safer."
Yeah, but it wouldn't have been as effective because that
Possibly
shot,
not.
I mean, that shot is definitely you can see you taking off from that boat, right? And it is an iconic scene. Everybody remembers that. Everybody knows that scene. The wings open. Bond takes off from the boat, and a couple of minutes later, he was flying over the Iguazu Falls. Even though they're completely different places, in probably weeks apart. I don't know how much. When did you film what? I mean, was Florida first and then Brazil?
No,
Brazil was first.
apparently all the films, everything's done back to front. You do the first bit last.
No, it's not always back to front. It's obviously logistically the best to do the things that, they've got to get permissions, like you say, and if they've got permission to use a certain street at a certain time, then they'll film that first. But it's not always back to front. But I get what you mean. So Iguazu was first, then you did that, and then you went to Florida. Do you know how long you were away for in total?
6 weeks.
Yeah, 6 weeks, I think.
6 weeks from start to finish.
Yeah.
But you didn't come back in between. You went from Brazil to.
Oh yeah, that's
Florida.
right. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, in Hollywood, where was it? Miami.
Yeah.
In Miami, I was the only one who went every day to the production office to ask could I go home.
Right.
And they said everybody else wants to stay. You're the only person who wants to go home.
Right.
And I went every day till they gave me permission to go.
So,
Yeah, you went and chatted to them every day, didn't you? I mean,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
I didn't know anything about this. I mean, you wouldn't let me go and talk to them because otherwise I'd have probably offered to do some more stupid things.
No,
But,
you'd have probably married them.
I mean, 22. You're being young and and being on a Bond set. It was probably quite exciting.
Very exciting. Yeah.
I mean, something you take with you. What did you guys do after then? You came back. Did you do any other work after? Did you do any?
I took leave from my job, which was absolutely stupid, which I didn't know at the time, because the tax man took my year's earnings from where I was working, plus the film money, taxed me on the lot, then fined me. It took me about 2 or 3 years to pay the tax.
But John, you were in a James Bond film. Hey, there's 100 fans out there watching this, and they would give their right arm to be in a James Bond film. And you were in one of the most iconic scenes in one of the films. So
we don't feel sorry for you, John.
No, in hindsight, you lost a bit of money, but you gained that place in James Bond history, I suppose. And we don't know. I mean, I haven't spoken to anybody from the casting or from whatever from back then, and we don't know why you weren't named Steve. But it was just obviously John was the guy in charge. Well,
you weren't in the credits. You weren't in the credits.
No,
I didn't know I was supposed to ask.
He's not in the credits, but he's on IMDb, which is the Internet Movie Database.
Oh, I see.
And they've got extended credits in there.
Right.
And he's down there as stuntman.
Yeah,
glider.
He was the first.
So we could, but the IMDb can be changed, and we'll work on that, Steve, to get you put in there with John to be the two glider guys doing the groundwork on Moonraker.
Chris, I'd ought to tell you that I was flown to Paris to meet Mr. Broccoli, who I thought was a lovely man. I got to Paris, go to the studio where he is. He had 3 Rolls Royces, one in America, one in France, and one in London. The chauffeur went around with him. He said to me, had I seen the start of a certain Bond film? I said, I'm sorry, Mr. Broccoli, I've never seen a Bond film. And the people laughed, and all the people in suits all up through the big table where we were sat. And one person turned around and said, why are you having him? And Mr. Broccoli looked straight at the man and he said, because he comes very highly recommended. That finished there. That finished that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was chuffed.
Yeah. Did you go to the premiere as well, Steve?
Yeah. I went to the premiere.
Right.
I mean, I would like to say really that it's surprising how well it all turned out, given how many things went wrong.
Yeah.
Really, I mean, really, you wanted to see Roger Moore's James Bond's boat going over the falls, didn't you? Really?
Yeah, but they tried blowing it over and it wouldn't go.
Well, originally, a French special effects team went out and looked at the job, and this was at a 10-year low for the river. And they said, "Oh yeah, this is good. Yeah, what we can do is put a monorail on the falls. So we'll fire the boat over the falls, so it looks really good for the cameras down below." Yeah, well, that's a good idea. And then the English special effects team, or the team that were going to put the monorail in, got there, and the falls were at a 10-year high. And they said, well, there's absolutely no way that we can put anything in there like that. But they had put the piece of metal or whatever in the base of the boat. They built it into the base of the boat to clip it into the monorail. So that made it heavier, and there's no way it would go over the falls. So that's why you miss out on the boat shooting over the edge, which would have looked really good. Another thing about that was that, of course, the boat was left on the edge of the falls. And now this is a national park, and a lot of permissions had to be asked.
And insurance of £6 million.
Yeah, a lot of permissions had to be sort of asked, and money had to change hands, I'm sure, to get permission to film there. So they had a boat stuck on the edge of their falls of their national park, and they said, no, we can't have that. We can't have that. You'll have to get rid of it. And nobody was volunteering to go up to the edge and oik it off. And they said, well, it's okay. The Brazilian army will do it. And they quoted 4 million. And we're talking about 45 years ago. That was a lot of money then, if it's not now. Yeah. And so they put the word around that this boat needed to disappear. And the guys that take tourists around the top of the falls in their little rowing boats, presumably oiked it off in the night, and it vanished. So that saved everybody £4 million, and somebody had a boat.
Okay.
They tried with the Bowjet Ranger to blow it over the falls, but it wouldn't budge. It got very low, close to it, but it would not budge.
So basically, in the film, we should have seen Bond's boat go over, and then Jaws go over after him.
Yeah,
that's right. Yeah.
Right, and of course it got stuck on the edge of the falls, and it couldn't.
Yeah, Jaws's boat went over because it was so much lighter. Didn't have a big lump of metal in the bottom of it to fire it over, and it went over a bit miserably, didn't it?
It wasn't.
No, you wanted to shoot over.
Yeah, it was actually one. Yeah,
Jaws was exactly the same height as me. Exactly. When you sat in the chair, I walked along by him, and we were exactly level.
When he was sat down, he's amazingly big. 7 foot. 7 foot.
Oh, he's dead now.
7 foot 2 inches. Yeah, he was.
Yeah.
Right. Well, guys, look, let's round it up, and I'm going to thank you so much, and let's everybody out there is going to love this, and they're going to love the interesting information that nobody knows apart from you guys, and now everybody else knows it.
Yeah, right.
So thanks for doing the interview, and we'll finish off there. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chris.